In the far reaches of the galaxy, where stars burned cold and silence stretched endlessly, humanity had carved out its place among the stars. Centuries of exploration, colonization, and technological advancements had brought Earth's children to the edges of the known universe. But even in this age of interstellar travel and galactic diplomacy, there remained one region no species dared to enter, the quantum zone. It was a swirling expanse of chaotic energy, a place where the laws of physics seemed to break down entirely. Ships that ventured too close vanished without a trace, and ancient star charts marked it with ominous symbols, warning all who approached to turn back. Captain Ryan Caldwell stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, a sleek exploration vessel commissioned by Earth's Galactic Council. The ship was state-of-the-art, equipped with advanced shields, propulsion systems designed for long journeys, and a crew hand-picked for their expertise. Beside Ryan sat Lieutenant Laura Bennett, her sharp eyes scanning data streams as they approached the edge of the zone. Her fingers danced across the console, pulling up readings that made even her seasoned mind pause. "The energy fluctuations are off the charts," she said, her voice steady but tinged with unease. "We're talking about levels we've never seen before." Ryan nodded, his gaze fixed on the swirling mass of light and darkness ahead. He was a man of determination, someone who believed in pushing boundaries no matter the cost. His dark hair was streaked with gray, a testament to years spent leading missions into uncharted territories. He had heard the warnings from alien diplomats, read the reports of ships lost to the quantum zone, and seen the fear in the eyes of those who spoke of it. Yet none of that mattered to him. Humanity's insatiable curiosity drove them forward, and Ryan was determined to be the one to unlock its secrets. The crew aboard the Eclipse shared a mix of excitement and apprehension. Dr. Daniel Harper, the ship's xenobiologist, paced nervously near the science station, a tall, wiry man with glasses perched on his nose. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far beyond their understanding. "This isn't just some anomaly," he muttered to himself, though his words carried enough weight for Laura to overhear. "It's alive, I can feel it." Laura glanced at him briefly but said nothing. She didn't need to agree or disagree. The tension in the air spoke volumes. Chief Engineer Kyle Monroe, meanwhile, was buried deep in the engine room, running diagnostics on the ship's systems. A broad-shouldered man with calloused hands, Kyle had spent most of his life tinkering with machines. He trusted technology more than people, and right now he trusted neither. The closer they got to the quantum zone, the more unpredictable the ship's instruments became. Readings flickered, sensors gave conflicting data, and the hum of the engines carried an odd vibration that set his teeth on edge. Still, Kyle kept working, determined to keep the Eclipse running no matter what lay ahead. As the ship drew nearer to the edge of the zone, strange phenomena began to manifest. Time seemed to slow down one moment and speed up the next. Gravity. Wells appeared out of nowhere, tugging at the ship like invisible hands trying to pull it apart. Faint whispers echoed through the corridors, voices speaking in languages no one could understand. Some crew members claimed they saw shadows moving in the corners of their vision, while others reported vivid dreams that felt more like memories of lives they'd never lived. It was as if the quantum zone was testing them, probing their minds and bodies to see how far they would go. Despite these unsettling occurrences, Ryan remained steadfast. He gathered the senior staff in the briefing room, a small but functional space lined with holographic displays. The mood was tense as everyone took their seats. Laura leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, while Daniel fidgeted with a pen he'd brought along. Kyle entered last, wiping grease-stained hands on a rag. "All right," Ryan began, his voice cutting through the silence. "We're here because humanity doesn't back down. We don't let fear dictate our actions. But I need to know, can we handle this? Are we ready for whatever's waiting for us inside?" Laura was the first to respond. "Our shields are holding, for now, but if we push deeper, I can't guarantee they'll withstand whatever's coming." Her tone was measured, professional, but there was a hint of doubt beneath her words. Daniel chimed in next, his voice quieter, but no less urgent. "We don't even know what whatever's coming is. This isn't just another mission, Captain. This is something else entirely. Kyle added his thoughts, pointing out potential mechanical failures and the strain already showing on the ship's systems. Ryan listened, carefully, absorbing their concerns but refusing to let them sway him. I hear you, he said finally. But think about what we stand to gain. If we can figure out what's causing these anomalies, we might unlock new forms of energy, new ways to explore the galaxy. We could change everything, for humanity and for every other species out there. His words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Laura broke the silence. If we're doing this, we need to be prepared for anything. No second guessing, no turning back. With that decision made, the eclipse crossed the threshold into the quantum zone. The transition was unlike anything any of them had ever experienced. Colors shifted and blurred, forming patterns that defied logic. Sounds warped and twisted, creating a symphony of chaos that filled the ship. And then, suddenly, everything went still. The crew stared at their instruments, unsure if they were still moving or frozen in time. Outside the viewport, the swirling mass of energy seemed to pulse with a heartbeat of its own. It was during this eerie calm that the transmission came. At first, it was little more than static, crackling faintly over the comms. But as Laura adjusted the frequency, it grew clearer, or at least more distinct. It wasn't in any known language, but the tones carried an almost sentient quality, as if the sender was reaching out not with words but with raw emotion. Fear gripped the crew as they realized they weren't alone. Whatever was communicating with them was vast, powerful, and utterly alien. Ryan ordered the ship to hold position, giving Laura time to analyze the signal. She worked quickly, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to decipher the message. Meanwhile, Daniel monitored environmental readings, searching for any sign of the source. Kyle stayed glued to the engine room, ensuring the ship remained operational despite the growing instability. As minutes ticked by, the tension aboard the Eclipse reached a breaking point. Then, without warning, a massive shape emerged from the swirling energy, a jagged, crystalline structure bristling with weapons. Its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, reflecting the chaotic light around it. The alien ship dwarfed the Eclipse, its presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. A voice boomed through the comms, deep and resonant. Turn back or face annihilation. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Ryan hesitated, torn between caution and defiance. Before he could respond, the ship's weapons charged, glowing with an intensity that lit up the surrounding void. The crew braced themselves for battle, knowing full well they were outmatched. Yet even as fear coursed through their veins, a spark of determination ignited within them. They were human after all, and humans didn't give up easily. The crystalline ship loomed over the Eclipse, its jagged edges glinting like shards of broken glass under the chaotic light of the quantum zone. Its weapons hummed with energy, casting an eerie glow that filled the bridge of the smaller human vessel. The voice that had issued the warning, a deep, resonant tone devoid of emotion, echoed in their minds long after it had faded from the comms. Turn back or face annihilation. It was a simple message, but one that carried the weight of inevitability. Ryan Caldwell clenched his jaw, his hands gripping the edge of the command console as he stared at the massive alien craft through the viewport. Lieutenant Laura Bennett worked frantically at her station, trying to decode more information about the ship and its occupants. Her fingers flew across the controls, pulling up streams of data that flickered erratically on her screen. "I'm picking up traces of biosignatures," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "But they're different, not like anything we've encountered before." She paused, squinting at the readings. Their biology might not even be carbon-based. This could be something entirely new. Dr. Daniel Harper moved closer to her station, peering over her shoulder at the data. His glasses slid down his nose as he leaned in, his expression a mix of fascination and unease. "If they're warning us off, it means they don't want us here," he muttered. But why? What are they protecting? He glanced toward Ryan, who remained silent, his eyes fixed on the alien ship. Captain, we should consider retreating. We're outnumbered, outgunned. We're not running, Ryan interrupted sharply, cutting Daniel off mid-sentence. His tone left no room for argument. We didn't come this far to turn tail because someone told us to. Besides, what's the worst they can do? Blow us up? At least then we'll know what happens when you cross into the quantum zone. His words were bold, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes, a fleeting shadow that betrayed the confidence he projected. Before anyone could respond, the alien ship fired a warning shot. A bolt of searing energy streaked past the Eclipse, narrowly missing its hull. The impact sent shockwaves rippling through space, jolting the crew and causing alarms to blare across the ship. Chief Engineer Kyle Monroe shouted from the engineering station, where he had been monitoring the ship's systems. Shields are holding for now, but another hit like that and we're done. Ryan acted quickly, barking orders to maneuver the ship out of range. Laura, plot an evasive course. Kyle, divert all available power to the shields. The crew sprang into action, their movements precise despite the chaos unfolding around them. Laura punched coordinates into the navigation system, guiding the Eclipse in a zigzag pattern to avoid further attacks. Meanwhile, Kyle worked furiously to reinforce the ship's defenses, his hands moving deftly over the controls as sweat beaded on his forehead. As the Eclipse dodged another volley of energy blasts, Daniel retreated to the science station, attempting to analyze the composition of the alien weaponry. Their weapons operate on a frequency we've never seen before, he reported, his voice tinged with both awe and dread. It's destabilizing our shield matrix. If we stay in combat for too long, we'll lose structural integrity. Ryan gritted, his teeth, his mind racing. They couldn't win a direct confrontation, not against a ship that vastly outclassed theirs. But retreat wasn't an option either. Humanity's presence in the quantum zone wasn't just about exploration. It was about proving they belonged among the stars. Turning back would mean admitting defeat, and Ryan refused to let fear dictate their actions. He needed a plan, and fast. Laura, he said, turning to her with renewed determination. Can you isolate the source of their transmissions? Find out where they're targeting us from? Laura nodded, already working on triangulating the signal. After several tense moments, she pointed to a specific section of the alien ship displayed on her monitor. There, she said, that cluster of emitters is likely controlling their weapon systems. If we disable it, we might buy ourselves some time. Ryan wasted no time. Kyle, prepare a concentrated burst of electromagnetic interference. Aim it at those emitters. Let's see how tough they really are. Kyle hesitated, his brow furrowed. Captain, if we overload our EM array, we risk frying half the ship's systems. Are you sure about this? Do it, Ryan ordered firmly. There was no hesitation in his voice, only resolve. Kyle exchanged a glance with Laura, who gave him a small nod of encouragement. With a resigned sigh, he set to work, rerouting power to the ship's electromagnetic array while keeping one eye on the rapidly depleting shield levels. As the Eclipse closed the distance between itself and the alien ship, the crew braced themselves for what came next. Ryan gripped the armrests of his chair, watching as the countdown timer ticked down to 0. When the moment arrived, Kyle activated the EMP burst, sending a wave of electromagnetic energy surging toward the alien vessel. For a brief instant, everything went still. The swirling chaos of the quantum zone seemed to freeze, and the alien ship's weapons ceased firing. Then, with a deafening crackle, the emitters exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. The alien ship shuddered violently, its once imposing form now marred by scorch marks and fractures along its surface. The crew of the Eclipse erupted into cheers, their relief palpable. But Ryan remained cautious, his gaze unwavering as he studied the damaged alien craft. Don't celebrate yet, he warned. They're not done with us. His prediction proved accurate. Moments later, the alien ship began emitting a low-frequency pulse that reverberated through the Eclipse. The vibrations rattled the crew, causing headaches and disorientation. Instruments malfunctioned and the lights flickered ominously. Daniel clutched his head, stumbling toward the nearest wall for support. "What's happening?" He groaned, his voice barely audible over the growing hum. Laura fought to maintain control of her station, her hands trembling as she struggled to stabilize the ship's systems. "It's some kind of sonic attack," she managed to say. "It's disrupting our neural pathways, making it hard to think straight." Even Ryan felt the effects, a dull ache spreading through his skull as the pulse intensified. Yet he forced himself to focus, knowing that giving in to the pain meant certain defeat. "Kyle!" Ryan shouted, his voice cutting through the haze. "Can you counteract the frequency?" Kyle shook his head, his face pale with exertion. "Not without recalibrating the entire grid. It'll take time we don't have." Desperation clawed at Ryan's chest, but he refused to give up. He turned to Laura, whose hands were flying over her console in a desperate attempt to regain control. "Is there anything we can use against them? Any weakness we haven't exploited yet?" Laura hesitated, scanning the data before her. Then her eyes widened. "Their core, it's generating the pulse. If we target it directly, we might be able to shut them down." Ryan didn't hesitate. "Laura, plot a collision course. Full speed ahead." The crew stared at him in stunned silence, unsure if they'd heard him correctly. "Captain, are you insane?" Daniel blurted out, panic creeping into his voice. "We'll be destroyed." "Not if we time it right," Ryan replied calmly. "Kyle, prepare the forward cannons. Fire everything we've got at their core the second we're in range, and Laura..." He locked eyes with her, his expression resolute. "Get us out of there before impact." With shaking hands, Laura input the coordinates, guiding the Eclipse on a collision course with the alien ship. The massive vessel loomed larger with each passing second, its fractured surface gleaming menacingly. Alarms blared throughout the ship as the crew prepared for what might be their final moments. Kyle armed the forward cannons, his fingers hovering over the trigger as sweat dripped down his face. "Ready when you are, Captain," he said hoarsely. Ryan watched the countdown timer, his heart pounding in his chest. When the numbers hit 0, he gave the order. "Fire!" Kyle pressed the button, unleashing a barrage of energy bolts that struck the alien ship's core with devastating force. The impact caused a chain reaction, sending explosions rippling across the vessel's surface. In the chaos, Laura executed a sharp turn, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic collision as the alien ship imploded in a blinding flash of light. The Eclipse rocked violently from the shockwave, throwing the crew off balance. But as the dust settled and the ship stabilized, a collective breath of relief washed over them. They had survived against all odds. Ryan slumped back in his chair, exhaustion written across his face. "Good work, everyone," he said quietly, his voice heavy with gratitude. "We made it through." But even as the crew celebrated their narrow victory, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of what lay ahead. The quantum zone was vast and unpredictable, and whatever secrets it held were far from revealed. The Eclipse drifted in the eerie calm that followed the destruction of the alien ship. The crew sat in stunned silence, their bodies still tense from the adrenaline rush of battle. Smoke curled from damaged consoles, and the faint smell of burnt circuits filled the air. Chief Engineer Kyle Monroe was already on his feet, moving swiftly between stations to assess the damage. His hands moved deftly over control panels, rerouting power and patching up critical systems. "Shields are down to 20%, he reported grimly, his voice cutting through the quiet. "Engines are holding, but we're limping at best." Lieutenant Laura Bennett leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples as if trying to erase the lingering effects of the alien pulse. Her sharp eyes scanned the data streams once more, searching for any sign of further threats. "No new contacts," she said finally, her tone cautious but relieved. "Whatever that thing was, it's gone. For now." She glanced at Ryan Caldwell, who stood near the viewport, staring into the swirling chaos of the quantum zone. His face was unreadable, but the weight of responsibility hung heavily on his shoulders. Dr. Daniel Harper slumped against a nearby wall, his glasses askew and his breathing shallow. That was insane, he muttered, shaking his head as if to clear it. We barely made it out alive. What happens when we run into something worse? His question hung in the air unanswered. No one wanted to think about what might lie deeper within the zone, but the reality was unavoidable. They had only just begun their journey, and already they had faced an enemy capable of annihilating them. Ryan turned away from the viewport, his expression firm despite the fatigue etched into his features. We knew this wasn't going to be easy, he said, addressing the crew. But humanity doesn't back down, not from challenges like this. If we let fear stop us every time things get tough, we'll never move forward. His words were meant to inspire, but they also carried an edge of defiance, a reminder that turning back wasn't an option. Despite his determination, Ryan couldn't ignore the unease gnawing at him. The alien ship had been unlike anything they'd encountered before. Its design, its weaponry, even the way it communicated all pointed to a level of technology far beyond human understanding, and yet it had been guarding something so valuable or dangerous that it warranted such extreme measures. Ryan's mind raced with possibilities. Was it protecting the secrets of the quantum zone itself? Or was there something else, hidden within this chaotic expanse? As the crew worked to stabilize the ship, strange phenomena began manifesting around them once more. Time seemed to stretch and compress unpredictably. Moments felt like hours, while entire sequences of events passed in the blink of an eye. Gravity wells appeared without warning, pulling at the ship's hull and forcing Laura to make constant adjustments to keep them on course. Faint whispers echoed through the corridors again, louder this time, carrying snippets of voices that sounded almost human, but not quite. Some crew members claimed they saw shadows moving in the corners of their vision, fleeting shapes that vanished when they turned to look. Daniel noticed these changes too, jotting notes furiously in his data pad as he tried to make sense of it all. This place isn't just dangerous, he murmured to himself, though his words carried enough volume for Ryan to overhear. It's alive. It's testing us, probing our minds and bodies to see how far we can go. Ryan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he walked over to the science station, where Daniel was analyzing environmental readings. What do you mean, alive? Ryan asked, his tone measured but curious. Daniel hesitated, choosing his words carefully. Look at these readings, he said, pointing to a series of erratic energy patterns displayed on the monitor. They're not random. There's a rhythm to them, almost like breathing. And the anomalies, the gravity wells, the temporal distortions, they're happening too often to be coincidence. It's like the zone knows we're here, like it's reacting to us. Ryan frowned, considering the implications. If Daniel was right, and given his expertise, Ryan had no reason to doubt him, it meant they weren't dealing with a natural phenomenon. This was something far more complex, perhaps even sentient. The thought sent a chill down his spine, but it also fueled his resolve. Humanity had always thrived on challenges, on pushing boundaries others deemed impossible. If the quantum zone truly was alive, then understanding it could unlock untold potential, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. With the ship stabilized and repairs underway, Ryan called another meeting in the briefing room. The mood was somber, the earlier victory overshadowed by the realization of what lay ahead. Laura took her usual seat, arms crossed as she listened intently. Daniel fidgeted nervously, clutching his datapad like a lifeline. Kyle entered last, wiping grease-stained hands on a rag. All right, Ryan began, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling around them. We've survived our first encounter, but we can't afford to let our guard down. Whatever's out there, it's watching us, testing us. We need to stay sharp. Laura nodded in agreement. Based on the current trajectory, we're approaching the inner layers of the zone. The energy fluctuations are increasing exponentially. If we push deeper, we risk losing control of the ship entirely. Her tone was clinical, but there was a hint of concern beneath her words. Daniel added his thoughts, his voice quieter, but no less urgent. And the psychological effects are getting worse. I've already seen signs of paranoia among some of the crew. If we don't find answers soon, we might lose ourselves before we even reach the heart of the zone. Kyle chimed in next, pointing out the strain on the ship's systems. We're running on borrowed time, he said bluntly. Half the engines are barely holding together, and the shields won't last another fight like the one we just had. If we keep going, we need a plan for when, not if, things go wrong again. Ryan listened carefully, absorbing their concerns but refusing to let them sway him. I hear you, he said finally, but think about what we stand to gain. If we can figure out what's causing these anomalies, we might unlock new forms of energy, new ways to explore the galaxy. We could change everything for humanity and for every other species out there. His words hung in the air, heavy with possibility. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Laura broke the silence. If we're doing this, we need to be prepared for anything. No second guessing, no turning back. With that decision made, the Eclipse pressed onward, venturing deeper into the quantum zone. As they traveled, the phenomena grew more pronounced. Colors shifted and blurred, forming patterns that defied logic. Sounds warped and twisted, creating a symphony of chaos that filled the ship. Outside the viewport, the swirling mass of energy pulsed with a heartbeat of its own, drawing them inexorably closer to its core. It was during this leg of their journey that the crew discovered something that would change everything. A faint signal emanated from ahead, distinct from the static-like transmissions they had encountered earlier. Laura adjusted the frequency, her brow furrowing as the message became clearer. Unlike the previous warning, this one was fragmented, almost pleading. Help. Remember. The voice whispered, repeating the same words over and over. It was unmistakably human, or at least, it sounded like it. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be survivors? He asked, his voice tinged with hope. Laura shook her head uncertainly. I don't know. The signal's weak, and it's coming from deep inside the zone. But whoever, or whatever, it is, it's close. The discovery reignited a spark of determination within the crew. They had come this far, faced unimaginable dangers, and now they had a lead, a thread to follow into the unknown. Whether it led to salvation or ruin remained to be seen. But one thing was certain. Humanity's journey into the quantum zone was far from over. The faint, fragmented signal continued to echo through the comm system of the Eclipse, its haunting repetition sending shivers down the spines of the crew. Help. Remember? The words were soft, almost drowned out by the static and chaotic hum of the quantum zone, but they carried an unmistakable urgency. Ryan Caldwell stood on the bridge, his hands clasped tightly behind his back as he stared at the viewport. The swirling mass of energy outside seemed darker now, denser, as if it were closing in around them. Yet the signal pulled them forward, a beacon amidst the chaos. Lieutenant Laura Bennett worked tirelessly at her station, fine-tuning the ship's sensors to pinpoint the source of the transmission. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. It's coming from somewhere ahead, she said finally, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. But the readings are inconsistent. One moment it's right in front of us, the next it's miles away. She paused, glancing up at Ryan. It's like the zone is playing tricks on us. Dr. Daniel Harper hovered near her station, his datapad clutched tightly in his hands. Or maybe it's not playing tricks, he suggested hesitantly. Maybe it's trying to communicate. That signal, it's too specific to be random. It knows we're here. His words hung heavily in the room, drawing uneasy glances from the others. The idea that the quantum zone itself, or something within it, was aware of their presence was both fascinating and terrifying. Ryan nodded slowly, absorbing Daniel's theory. If it's trying to communicate, then we need to figure out what it wants. Laura, can you isolate the signal? See if there's a pattern we can decode? Laura didn't respond immediately, her focus entirely on the task at hand. After several tense moments, she let out a small gasp. There's something here, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. A repeating sequence embedded in the transmission. It's mathematical, like coordinates. Chief Engineer Kyle Monroe perked up at this, stepping closer to examine the data. Coordinates, you mean like a location? Laura nodded, pulling up a holographic map on one of the displays. A blinking marker appeared deep within the heart of the quantum zone, surrounded by shifting patterns of energy. That's where the signal is strongest, she explained. If we head there, we might find whoever or whatever is sending it. Ryan didn't hesitate. Set a course, he ordered firmly. We'll follow the signal. If it leads us to answers or survivors, we'll take the risk. The crew exchanged wary glances but didn't argue. They had come too far to turn back now, and the prospect of finding someone else in this desolate expanse offered a glimmer of hope. As the eclipse moved deeper into the zone, the phenomena grew more intense. Time dilation became unpredictable. Hours felt like minutes and seconds stretched into eternity. Gravity wells yanked at the ship's hull with increasing frequency, forcing Laura to make constant adjustments to keep them on track. Shadows flitted across the corridors, more vivid now, their movements almost deliberate. Some crew members reported hearing whispers in their ears, voices calling their names or recounting memories they couldn't quite place. Daniel spent most of his time monitoring these changes, documenting every anomaly he could observe. It's like the zone is alive, he muttered under his breath, scribbling notes furiously in his datapad. And it's testing us, pushing us to see how much we can endure. He glanced toward Ryan, who remained stoic despite the mounting pressure. Do you think it knows we're human? Or does it just see us as intruders? Ryan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his attention to the viewport, where the swirling energy seemed to pulse with greater intensity. Maybe both, he said finally. But we've faced worse odds before. We adapt, we survive. That's what humans do. Despite his confidence, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not just by the zone itself, but by something far older and more powerful. As they approached the coordinates indicated by the signal, the ship's instruments began to behave erratically. Lights flickered, consoles sparked, and the faint whispers grew louder, overlapping in a cacophony of voices. Laura struggled to maintain control of the navigation system, her hands trembling as she fought against the interference. We're close, she managed to say, her voice strained. Almost there. Then, suddenly, the swirling chaos parted, revealing a massive structure suspended in the void. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a sprawling lattice of glowing filaments that pulsed with rhythmic light, resembling a living organism more than a machine. At its center floated a spherical entity, shimmering with iridescent hues that shifted and danced like liquid fire. The sight was breathtaking and utterly alien. What is that thing? Kyle whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's systems. No one answered. The crew stood frozen, staring in awe at the spectacle before them. Even Ryan, who prided himself on his unshakable resolve, felt a chill run down his spine. Laura broke the silence first, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and wonder. It's beautiful, she murmured, and terrifying. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes wide behind his glasses. This must be the source of the signal, he said, his tone hushed. But what is it? Some kind of intelligence? A remnant of an ancient civilization? Before anyone could respond, the entity reacted to their presence. Its surface rippled and a wave of energy surged outward, enveloping the eclipse. The crew cried out as visions flooded their minds, images of distant worlds, civilizations, long extinct, and futures yet unwritten. For a fleeting moment, they saw themselves not as individuals, but as part of something vast and incomprehensible. Memories that weren't theirs surfaced, emotions they couldn't explain overwhelmed them. It was as if the entity was speaking directly to their souls, bypassing language altogether. Ryan clenched his fists, fighting to remain grounded amidst the sensory overload. Stay focused, he shouted, his voice cutting through the haze. Whatever this thing is, we're not leaving until we understand it. The entity responded not with words but with sensations. Warmth spread through the ship, soothing the crew's frayed nerves and calming their racing hearts. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the connection severed, leaving them dazed but unharmed. The glowing sphere dimmed slightly, its pulsating, rhythm slowing to match the beat of a human heart. Daniel staggered back, clutching his chest as if trying to steady his breathing. "It's alive," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "Not just sentient, alive. It's been here for eons, watching, waiting, and now it knows we're here." Ryan nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Then let's not waste its time. Or ours. Laura, scan it, find out everything you can. Daniel, analyze those visions, see if there's any meaning to them. Kyle," he turned to the engineer, whose face was pale but determined, "keep the ship running. I don't care how bad things get. We're not losing this opportunity." The crew sprang into action, each member consumed by their tasks. Laura ran diagnostics on the entity, her screens filling with streams of data that defied conventional understanding. Daniel sifted through the fragments of memory left behind by the visions, searching for patterns or clues. Kyle worked tirelessly, in the engine room, reinforcing systems strained by the zone's relentless assault. As the hours passed, a clearer picture began to emerge. The entity, dubbed the Nexus by Daniel, was indeed alive, a form of quantum-based consciousness that existed beyond the constraints of time and space. It wasn't malevolent, nor was it benevolent. It simply was. But its presence raised questions about the nature of existence itself. Was it a guardian of the quantum zone, a relic of a forgotten age, or something else entirely? Laura's analysis revealed another startling detail. The Nexus was not alone. Scattered throughout the zone were other structures, smaller but similar, in design, each emitting faint signals like the one that had led them here. "It's a network," she explained, pointing to a holographic map. "The Nexus is the hub, connected to dozens, if not hundreds, of nodes. Each one could hold information, knowledge, maybe even warnings." Ryan studied the map intently, his mind racing with possibilities. "Then we've only scratched the surface," he said grimly. "This isn't just about survival anymore. If we can unlock the secrets of the Nexus, we might change everything, for humanity, for the galaxy. But we'll have to move carefully. One wrong step, and we could lose everything." The decision weighed heavily on him, but Ryan knew there was no turning back. Humanity had always thrived on curiosity, on the desire to explore the unknown. Now, standing on the precipice of discovery, they had a choice: retreat into the safety of the known, or embrace the uncertainty of the cosmos. For Ryan Caldwell and the crew of the Eclipse, there was only one path forward. The crew of the Eclipse stood frozen in awe as they processed what they had just experienced. The Nexus, this vast and incomprehensible entity at the heart of the quantum zone, had communicated with them, not through words or images, but through raw emotion and sensation. It was as if it had reached directly into their minds, showing them glimpses of worlds beyond comprehension, timelines that never existed, and futures still waiting to unfold. Each member of the crew felt the weight of those visions differently, carrying fragments of emotions and memories that weren't their own. Lieutenant Laura Bennett sat quietly at her station, her hands resting lightly on the controls. Her sharp eyes were clouded with thought, replaying the sensations she had felt during the connection. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Nexus wasn't just observing. It was judging, testing them. "It knows us," she murmured under her breath, though loud enough for Ryan Caldwell to hear. "Not just as humans, but as individuals. It knows our fears, our hopes, maybe even our secrets." Ryan nodded slowly, his jaw tight. He had always prided himself on his ability to stay focused, to push aside distractions and make tough decisions when necessary. But the Nexus had touched something deep within him, something he hadn't fully understood until now. For a brief moment during the connection, he had seen Earth not as it was, but as it could be. A thriving utopia stretching across the stars, united by knowledge and purpose. And then, just as quickly, he had seen its opposite, a barren wasteland, consumed by greed and destruction. Both visions felt equally possible, equally real. The weight of that duality pressed heavily on his chest. Dr. Daniel Harper paced nervously near the science station, clutching his datapad tightly. His mind raced with questions, theories, possibilities. "This changes everything," he said finally, breaking the tense silence. "If the Nexus is truly sentient, and I think we can agree it is, then it's not just an object of study, it's a being, a consciousness, and it's interacting with us on a level we don't fully understand." He paused, glancing toward Ryan. "We need to decide how far we're willing to go. Do we keep pushing or do we pull back before we lose control?" Chief Engineer Kyle Monroe leaned against a nearby console, wiping grease-stained hands on a rag. His broad shoulders sagged slightly, fatigue evident in his expression. "Control might already be slipping," he muttered darkly. "Look at this ship. Half the systems are barely holding together, and every second we spend here makes it worse. If we keep going deeper, we risk losing more than just the eclipse. We risk losing ourselves." Despite their concerns, Ryan remained resolute. "We didn't come this far to turn back because things got complicated," he said firmly. "Whatever the Nexus is, whatever it wants, we owe it to humanity to find out. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered what's out there." His words carried conviction, but they also masked a deeper truth. Ryan knew the risks. He understood the potential consequences of pressing forward. Yet, he couldn't ignore the opportunity before them. Humanity had always thrived on curiosity, on the desire to explore the unknown. Now, standing on the precipice of discovery, retreat wasn't an option. As the crew continued their work, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Some, like Laura and Daniel, were driven by scientific curiosity, eager to unravel the mysteries of the Nexus. Others, like Kyle, were more cautious, wary of the dangers lurking within the quantum zone. But one person harbored a secret that threatened to disrupt everything: Navigator Samantha Cole. Samantha had been quiet throughout the mission, often lingering in the background while others took center stage. She was meticulous in her duties, ensuring the eclipse stayed on course despite the unpredictable nature of the zone. But behind her calm exterior lay a hidden agenda. Before leaving Earth, she had been approached by representatives of the Galactic Council, a secretive group tasked with safeguarding humanity's interests in the galaxy. They had given her a directive: document everything. Every decision, every interaction, every piece of data collected during the mission. Nothing was to be left unrecorded. At first, Samantha had followed orders without question, believing her actions served the greater good. But as the journey progressed, doubt began to creep in. The closer they got to the Nexus, the more she questioned whether humanity was ready for such power or responsibility. When the crew gathered in the briefing room later that day, she made her move. "Captain," she began hesitantly, drawing everyone's attention, "there's something I need to tell you." Her voice wavered slightly, betraying nerves she rarely showed. Ryan turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Go ahead," he prompted, gesturing for her to continue. Taking a deep breath, Samantha revealed her secret. "Before we left Earth, I was given instructions by the Galactic Council. They wanted me to record everything about this mission. The decisions we made, the risks we took, the discoveries we found, everything." She paused, bracing herself for the backlash. "I've been sending updates back to them through encrypted transmissions. I thought it was the right thing to do. That humanity needed to know everything we learned, no matter the cost." The room fell silent, the weight of her confession hanging heavy in the air. Laura's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across her face. "You've been spying on us?" she asked sharply, her tone cutting through the tension. "Reporting our every move to Earth?" Samantha flinched but held her ground. Not spying, documenting. There's a difference. What we're doing here, it's unprecedented. The Council has a right to know what's happening, to prepare for whatever comes next. Daniel shook his head, disbelief etched into his features. And what happens if they decide we've gone too far, that we've put ourselves in danger? Will they order us to abandon the mission? Pull us out before we even finish? Kyle crossed, his arms, his expression grim. Or worse, what if they use what we've found against us? Against the Nexus? You've seen what this place can do. Imagine someone using it as a weapon. Ryan listened silently, letting the debate unfold around him. When the voices died down, he stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. Enough, he said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. What's done is done. We can't change the past, and arguing won't help us now. He fixed Samantha with a hard stare. But I need to know, are you loyal to this crew or to the Council? Samantha hesitated, caught between conflicting loyalties. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. To both. I believe in what we're doing here. I believe in humanity's potential. But I also believe in accountability. Someone needs to make sure we don't lose sight of who we are in the pursuit of knowledge. Ryan studied her for a long moment before nodding. Then prove it. From this point forward, your loyalty belongs to this ship and this crew. No more secrets. No more transmissions. Understood? Samantha swallowed hard but gave a small nod. Understood. The tension eased slightly, though the rift remained. Trust, once broken, was difficult to repair. As the meeting adjourned, the crew returned to their tasks, each grappling with their own thoughts. Laura threw herself into analyzing the Nexus, determined to uncover its secrets. Daniel pored over the fragmented memories left behind by the visions, searching for patterns or meaning. Kyle worked tirelessly in the engine room, reinforcing systems strained by the zone's relentless assault. Meanwhile, Ryan retreated to his quarters, seeking solitude to process the events of the day. He stared out the small viewport, watching the swirling energy of the quantum zone stretch endlessly into the void. The Nexus loomed large in his mind, its presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. Humanity had always sought answers, driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge. But some answers came at a cost, and Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that the price of understanding the Nexus might be higher than anyone anticipated. Yet even as doubt gnawed at him, one thing remained clear. They had come too far to turn back now. Whatever lay ahead, whether salvation or ruin, they would face it together. Because that was what humans did. They adapted, they endured, and above all, they persevered.